idiot that's like trying to give you double buffs on the enemy team. Um, so that's pretty much that. Another big thing about early game is understanding what build path you want to be you want to have. I've talked about this with several players. At this point, some people have issue with item pathing. Some people have very simple item path that they follow every game simply because that's their role, and it's very hard to deviate. We're talking support and jungle here. You buy your enchantment, you buy your gold item, you buy your sightstone, and then from there you start realizing what you need for the team and all that stuff. Um, but there are ways of losing the lane early and not understanding what's going on because of it. A big example is mid lane. If you need to understand what items that you need to be building early on, I'm not trying to call anyone out here, but it happens all the time. I've already seen it in several players where they're just building random items for the sake of building random items, and they don't really understand why they're building the items. One of my favorite examples is playing Fizz in mid lane. So you see Fizz in mid lane, rushing Lich Bane in competitive, right? That's actually not correct, believe it or not. The best way to uh, play Fizz in solo queue in mid lane is to buy the Sheen and sit on the Sheen and then look to build another item. Another way to play him is to build Morellonomicon as a first item and forgo the Sheen until third item. Your core in that case would be Morellonomicon Zanya's, and then you buy the Lich Bane. The return on Lich Bane is not as high as people think it is, especially for a champion like Fizz. So let's take a look here, right? Um, so, cost analysis. So we're looking at 80 ability power, 250 mana, the irrelevant movement speed. Some people claim this is relevant. It really isn't. I promise. It doesn't really affect anything. So gold efficiency on Lich Bane is about 80%, right? It's even worse on manless champions. I don't want you rushing Lich Bane on Mordekaiser. I don't want you rushing Lich Bane on who do we have? Kennen. It's fine on Akali as a third item. It's completely fine on Akali as a third item. So in order for the item to be gold efficient, you need about 562 gold out of each proc. That's definitely not happening on the first proc. It's half of it's 0.5 of your AP. So imagine if you have 3 AP quints plus 80 ability power. So that's 15 plus 80, that's 95. 95 divided by 2 is about like 47.5, I believe. 95 by 2, 47.5. You are getting 47.5. Let's take a look at this base AD ratio. Uh, base AD ratio. It's about 56. So let's say you get the Lich Bane at like level 6, level 7. I'd say maybe 70 plus 80. So that is about, I'd say, about 40 more damage than a Luden's Echo proc. That is not gold efficient. That is, you are not going to get even with the damage application from R, you are not going to be getting the damage that you need to make this sufficiently mana efficient. Unless you snowballed, unless you have your CDR boots already on Fizz, the item is actually quite inefficient as a rush. There are obviously special situations where Lich Bane is a lot better. Twisted Fate comes to mind. He gets a lot of free damage from his cold cards. He gets a lot of free damage from his E passive. It helps him out in ganks a lot. Another example is I say this all the time about Ludens being awful. It's not terrible in Katarina. She uses a lot of cooldowns. It allows her to snowball the map. It's a very good first item on her. Um, once again, Luden's Echo is not that bad on Twisted Fate. If you're able to proc it on the enemy that you are ganking, it's extra damage guaranteed because of the amount of distance you move with your ultimate. So I'm not saying that like every item is terrible in every situation, but I've given you examples where a rushing an item on champion X is not the same as rushing an item on champion Y, and you just need to realize what your champion does, and work it out from there. Any questions about item paths? I want people to really understand this. This is a very important point about early game because I've seen so many people just throw away their early game through improper builds. Oh, actually, there's more I can talk about here. Be giving up first bloods. Giving up first bloods in lane. You probably shouldn't come back with more damage. I know a lot of people do this. Don't come back with more damage. Maybe buy the cloth armor. Buy a ruby crystal. You're going to build it into something eventually. It can't hurt you to buy it now. And that little bit of sustain can really help out. Survivability can really help out. All right. Early support itemization. Is a tier 2 gold item and a ruby crystal better than worse than a sightstone? It depends on what's going on in the game. So I have there's a classic. I don't want to say classic. There's a very popular strategy on Soraka. I implement it in all my Soraka games. It's where you buy one potion along with your tier 1 gold item, and you back immediately once you have 500 gold, and you sit on tier 2 for a very long time. This generates more gold for you at the cost of a little experience, but if you manage the wave correctly, they're going to push it back to you, and you're going to catch the wave on your way back and miss like maybe 5 or 6 creeps worth of experience. However, that this build there's flexibility in the build. If you manage to get like first blood because jungler ganks for you or something, or like they screw up massively and you manage to win level 1 as Soraka somehow, it's perfectly okay to buy that Sightstone. If you are looking to pressure lanes more with Annie, that upgraded Frost Queen's claim is going to do you wonders, especially if you're able to buy 2 wards on your back. So it all depends on what's going on in the game. If you know the jungler is going to be around and you are, pretty much going even, you probably want to buy the Sightstone instead. However, if you see an opportunity to make plays, or you see an opportunity to make more gold off your gold item rather than the Sightstone, because Sightstone is wonderfully cost efficient, right? Like it's so much gold, it's so much free gold for you, and there are situations where it's obviously correct to just rush it because you need to put the wards out. So it really depends on every game and every situation. You need to sit there and think about it. Like, okay, if I upgrade my my Frostfang here, upgrade the Frostfang here, will I be able to get the goal out of it to get away with greeting out reading out 2 wards and just putting them in the river and killing my lane opponent? If the answer is yes, you probably the damage and the gold generation is probably worth it. But most of the time, you just want to buy the Sightstone. In all honesty. Also, question about support optimization, more specifically for Morg. I have a game where my mid laner died a lot, so we ended up with a very fed AP mid laner. Should I continue buying Zhonya's, or is Aegis Rush a better choice? Question 1, you need to ask the jungler, are you buying Aegis? If they don't say anything, if they say no, you probably need to buy the Aegis. Number 2, it depends if the AP mid laner is very mobile. There's some immobile mid laners. Shoutouts to Heimerdinger. Shoutouts to Victor. Shoutouts to let's see who else is there. Annie. Okay. Let me. You probably want to rush that Zhonya's because you're going to be able to dodge. If you're able to outplay them, it becomes even easier with your Zhonya's. Diana. I would probably have rushed the Aegis. in that situation. She can one-shot people. It's a problem. You need to have some form of magic resist against her. So if the champion is Diana in that case, you probably need to rush the Aegis. And double Aegis is actually more than fine too. So you can ask the jungler if it's an offensive jungler. You probably need to ask them if they're buying the Aegis. If they probably aren't. That means you get to buy the Aegis. And if it's a tank jungler, ask if you're buying the Aegis. Yeah. And that's a very good adaptation. That's what you need to be doing in games. Very well done. This is what I'm talking about when you just need to think about what's going on in the game. You need to think about it and adjust your item build path accordingly. I cannot reiterate how important this is. I cannot reiterate how important this is. You need to understand what's going on in the game and build accordingly. Sometimes you can build for lane. Sometimes you can get away with building for lane. But sometimes you might need to build for someone else that's fed on the enemy team. You might need to forego that power spike item that would allow you to destroy your enemy mid laner. Rush Azanias, because you need to be able to live through the enemy Riven and you need to be able to bait the enemy Riven. Any more questions on this? I really want to get this point across because once again I said that getting this early game itemization is one of the hardest things for people to understand, and they randomly throw lanes because of it because they make terrible choices. If you get first blood as a mid laner, at what point should you be building the items and not get Doran's? It depends on when you got first blood. It depends on how much gold you backed with. It depends on what item you're looking to build. It depends on what's going on in the map. So let me give you an example. You get first blood at 3 minutes in. You shove the lane. You probably want to buy another Doran's ring and move from there. Let's say we move further down the line. We buy it at we get first blood at 7 minutes. Very rare occurrence, I know. But we're able to buy a needlessly large rod because of it, and it's going to build into, say we're playing, who are we playing? Say we're playing Katarina. Obviously, you want that needlessly large rod. It's a matter of understanding what is going on and what your mid game goal is, right? You need to understand what your mid game goal is, and being able to adjust your mid game goal on the fly is a very valuable skill as well. So I hope you understand. If not, I can explain it further. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna move away from my build paths now. This is I can't reiterate this enough. This is a very important skill that people need to know. They need to be able to be flexible and to adjust their builds, and not build the same thing every single game because it worked last game, it worked the game before that, it worked the game before that. It might not work this game because an external factor stops it from working. Unless the item's OP, in which case go nuts, right? Shout out to Ludens, shout out to Lichbane, shout out to Morello and Omicron when they were all overpowered. Shout out to Infinity Edge. Shout out to a Titanic Hydra right now. Certain champions should always just build that item. All right, so we're starting to move from early game to mid game. I wanted to briefly touch on level 6 here. Level 6 is a very important power spike for a lot of champions. It might be a marginal power spike for certain champions. Looking at Yorick, looking at Elise, very, very, very minor power spike, but it's still pretty nice. Just understand what the enemy is capable at level 6 and what you're capable at level 6. If you know you're about to hit level 6, maybe position for the all-in because you have it. Oh, yeah. All right. Very, very brief. I already talked about level 1, 2, and 3 earlier. You just need to understand what your capabilities are, and that comes with champion mastery. All right. So any questions about early game? Anything at all? Okay, bot lane.